Welcome to the Financial Literacy Podcast, MyFinJourney, where we don't just talk about money, we decode the mindset, the systems, and the strategy behind real success. Today's guest is one of the most powerful, impactful voices in the intersection of data, AI, and financial services, a powerful advocate for women in tech, a mentor, a force in the AI community, a 2024 LinkedIn top voice. This conversation is going to challenge how you think about growth, risk, purpose, and what financial freedom really means in a rapidly changing world. Let's get into it. Supreet Kaur, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for the warm introduction.
I wanted to dive right in. I noticed that from our previous conversations that you've taken a lot of big swings in life. I wanted to really understand, how do you assess risk, and what's a risk that you took that changed everything for you?
That's a great question. So a little bit about my background so that I can tie it to the story of risk is that in 2017 is when I landed in the United States, which changed everything for me. And I would say that was the biggest risk that I ever took. I was 21 and I had no idea what I was doing. The only thing that I knew was that I wanted to pursue a degree in data science. It was the sexiest job of 21st century. I had read that article and I was super inspired to do something within this field. And as they say, as you're young, you have the energy and your risk appetite is also bigger. You are able to take these leap of faiths and trust the universe in the process. And that's exactly what I did. 2 years of drilling here in the US. I landed my first role as a data scientist in 2019. It was a startup, I would say 60 people. And that is where my professional journey really started. But when I started working, I was just making $60,000, which, if you understand with the debt and everything, it's on the lower side, right? But I had to get a first job and start my career journey here in the US. What I really did after that was very strategic, which is that I wanted to grow not only in my career within data science, but I also obviously wanted to grow my salary. So I did 4 switches in the past 6 years, and they were very strategic. Whatever positions came to me, I assessed them as to how it will tie with my long-term career strategy. And that's how I took those leap of faiths. This is my 4th switch now as an AI solutions architect at Microsoft. And I have a story on how it all ties together.
I think it's, from my perspective, when I hear the story, it's fundamentally you started young, you started early. Recognize that being young, you have a lot of pros that other people don't have. You can afford to take risk. You can really put in the hard work and scale.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you just stay in one field and kind of stagnate or just grow in that one field. You have to look for where's the most strategic place to grow. It can be the company you're with, or it can be something else. So with that in mind, what is one mistake you made early in your career that you look back on and you think, oh, it's actually quite serendipitous, or it's quite strategic, or it's good fortune that mistake enabled you to scale more and grow faster?
That's a good question. And I think on growth, I see as either you can have a vertical growth or a horizontal growth. So whenever you are thinking about your career moves, either it has to be that you grow within the company, right, which I call a vertical growth. You become a manager, a senior manager, and you take up roles above in the hierarchy, or you grow horizontally. So for me, for a very long time, these switches I thought would reprimand me and put a dent in my career. But by the 4th switch, I realized that the way market is moving so fast, it doesn't really matter now, right? Things change so fast. We all know the kind of layoffs that are happening. The economy is evolving. AI is coming into play. Roles are evolving. So it's possible that what you signed up for when you started the role is not even applicable anymore 6 months down the line, because things are changing so fast. So I think as long as you have a story to explain your switches, it shouldn't be a problem. And that was my biggest fear. I actually thought that I was making a mistake, that just for the money, the growth, I was switching so fast, and I really thought it would bite me later on. But I feel like in hindsight, it was the best decision.
I love it. I love it. Especially in today's era of immediate gratification, where the one social media content creator, you follow their narrative, you follow their story. That means how they're doing it is right and how everyone else is doing it is wrong. But I think fundamentally you said something really deep, that you need a story. Whatever your path is, however you're growing, it's important to efficiently and effectively communicate that to those around you. That way you're able to continue to scale. And I think that leads me to my next question, which would be, what systems or mental models have you used and are you currently using for personal growth that you think that listeners could implement today?
So I live an extremely disciplined and boring life. I wake up at 5 a.m. I have a very strict routine. I work out almost every day, 6 days a week. I try to eat as clean as I can. I rely on ancient herbs. I feel like a good mind starts with a good body. And if you feel healthy inside out, you would bring your best self to work. Also, when you are learning something new, specifically in the field I am, where I have to read every day, I have to research every day, I need to have a fresh, fed mind and body as well as soul. So that's why I follow this routine. I go to bed by 9:30, wake up at the same time, sleep at the same time, even on weekends. And that disciplined lifestyle helps me, I would say, extract the maximum out of a day, spend enough time working, spend enough time maintaining myself with nature, walking, and also doing my job, right? I have tons of customers and I have a very heavy job here. So I feel anyone can achieve anything as long as you have a system in place and you're consistent and you're disciplined at the same time.
I love that. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. But for me, it's always been whatever's the most annoying, hard task, do that first. What is your approach to structuring your day in terms of the workload?
That is exactly what I do. As soon as I wake up in the morning, for me, I try to spend 1 hour just learning about a new topic or something that I wanted to hear and I couldn't, a YouTube video or a research paper. And then I start my workout and then I get to my work. So it's just because I want to start my day on a high note, which is reading about something that you don't know. And it isn't the most difficult to grasp, but my brain works at the maximum potential in the morning.
I was recently on a panel and one of the co-panelists mentioned the value of going into rabbit holes. The idea being like you start out researching one thing, it leads you to something else, it leads you to something else, and you just enjoy the process of learning about things you don't know. And the subtext is that you don't know what you don't know. So you kind of have to go out and look for it.
Yeah.
And then you get to a position where you can leverage that knowledge and growth to apply it to your career to actually grow further. So I'm curious here if that's been your experience, just waking up every day, 6, 7 days a week, and just learning about different topics and how that's helped you grow.
That's exactly right. Especially within the field of AI, as you read more, you realize how less, even though I feel like I'm privileged enough to work in an organization, in a team, in a role where I experience whatever is new in the field like the first, but still there is a lot that I don't know. And to best serve my customers, I feel I have to be the one who knows things, at least what's happening around me. So there is always this fear of missing out, that you are missing out on a lot of things. But what I say is that treat this like a process, right? And my mantra is JOMO, joy of missing out. It is okay if you don't know something today itself. There are only 24 hours in a day. You can schedule those learning sessions and you can make sure that you grasp the concepts. It's important to understand the concepts more than just understanding it for the sake of it, right? And also, if you enjoy the process, there is a strong possibility that you would also remember these complicated concepts and you can explain someone who doesn't know them in a simpler and a more articulated way.
I love it. Thank you so much for going into your show. One question that I have for you, because it's abundantly clear that you're not only hyper intentional about how you structure your day, but you actually go out and do it. What is, from your perspective, what is the greater purpose or the reason behind why you live such a structured life? Because I think for a lot of listeners, they could really get a greater appreciation for you and how to implement, the mantras that you're mentioning if they understand the broader or the wider vision that you have.
Yeah. So I would say there are two purposes. One is that during my childhood and in my teenage years, until I was 23, I was dealing with obesity, right? I was an obese kid, an obese teenager, and even in my adult life, I felt like there was something missing, that I was not able to operate at my highest efficiency. I was always a bright child. I was good in academics and who loved reading, who loved studying. But there was something that was holding me back, right? And when I decided to get in shape, lose weight, it was not just because I wanted to look good, but I knew that I could harness the maximum potential of my brain if I was looking my best. So along with that came the pressure of being an immigrant, juggling with hundreds of things. Being alone, loneliness plays a big role when you are dealing with all of this. And you have to pay off the debt, you have to work, you have to study. So all of that kind of weighed heavily on me all at once. So I had to develop a system where I could shine at work because I was always very passionate about this field, and I'm a very ambitious person, right? I want to grow at 10x speed if I can. But at the same time, I also want to feel good. I want to wake up every morning and feel like I have the energy, and, I want to feel gratitude in my heart when I'm waking up. Because of all of those reasons, I decided to shape my life and shape my, I would say, journey this way that was pretty intentional, where I gave time to everything, your mind, your body, your soul, right? You have to feed everything equally. You cannot be like, okay, let me just work right now and I'll work out maybe after 20 days and that day never comes. Like for me, that doesn't work, right? So that is why I had to have these systems in place. So I think one suggestion would be, if you are ambitious in your life, be ambitious with your body and your soul, and you would see how all of the confluence of that will help you reach your highest potential.
I love it, Supreet. I think from my own perspective, like
Yeah.
personal body health and things like this was not high on my list at all. Then about a year, 2 years ago, I woke up just in pain. I was like 30, I have young kids, etc.
Yeah.
I'm waking up with back pain. And it's these small things that lead you to say, hey, I'm going to invest time in my health. And then, at least in my opinion, watching what you eat, working out increases your energy levels. And then you're able to actually perform at a higher state, at a more peak state. And then things kind of get easier if you're doing, quote unquote, all the right things. But it's also to say that if you're somebody who, like, working out or eating healthy is not high on the list, that's fine. No pressure. Grow at your own pace and then develop systems and processes to get there eventually. Like, not everything has to be 0 to 100. There can be 1% improvements. As long as you know what your purpose is, you know what your goals are, and you're navigating in the right direction. I wanted to understand from your perspective, your thoughts on adversity, pressure, response to lows. When you were talking about purpose, these were the types of things that I was thinking. And I feel like there's a decent amount of parallels with people who rebound and have the success that we've had. Sometimes you need those low lows to really be in a position to experience the highest of the highs. That's really one of the questions that I wanted to have you share your perspective with the audience.
Is it more around how lows shape your success?
It can be like, this was my experience. This is how I rebounded and how I got to where I am today.
Okay.
However
So
you
I
want to
think
do it.
that's my entire life stories. Let me start that. Let
Yeah.
me highlight maybe a few, right? That I think a lot of immigrants who are listening, who would listen to this podcast, would also benefit. There are a few emotions that all immigrants go through. So I share my experience. When I landed here, I graduated. This was 2019, right? And the market was not at the best, but still it was not the best. And I think for international students, it's always been very difficult with the sponsorship and all the other pressures. I applied to these thousands of roles and I was not getting a call, and I had 1 or 2 months left and I had to pack everything. And there's this huge 60,000 debt that is waiting for you and you need to go back. I had no experience, by the way, from India. So this would be my first professional job, which I'm not able to crack. And I basically saw what failure meant firsthand at the time. In India, I was doing really well. And now I come here and I basically face the reality on how even if you're the brightest of the brains, you might not get a role. It's nothing to do with you. It's just the systems and, how things are difficult. What I did is when I got my first role, I remember being so disappointed that I worked so hard and I've got a role which doesn't satisfy the salary level that I was expecting. But what I did after that basically shaped my journey. In that role, I worked extremely hard, tried to learn anything and everything that I had to become a good data scientist. Someone recognized my work and referred me to their company. And within an year, I was able to grow my salary 40% more. I didn't have to do anything. which is unheard of. They decided to take all my immigrant problems as their own, and they decided to welcome me in their company. Morgan Stanley reached out, right? That was also another thing where I reached out to my manager one random day and I got the role. And this was 2021 when everyone was inundated with offers, by the way. But I was not getting an offer. I was not getting interviews. And that is when I saw the power of personal branding and basically putting yourself out there. People actually think that they are in this loop, right? Where they'll just apply and they'll sit silent and they would get the opportunities. But I learned on how to attract opportunities rather than chasing, which is through the power of personal branding. So when it came to Microsoft, which was last year, I did not apply to a single role. All the 15 interviews that I got in an economy like 2024 were through LinkedIn, were through people who knew me. And they told me that if you're ever in a market, please contact us. So that just by the power of personal brand, I was able to shape my destiny. And all these lows that I faced in the start, I was able to convert them into yes. And another thing is, I think for immigrants, if you are working on your visa, personal brand again plays a great role. If you're doing something like an extraordinary visa, an outstanding visa, which I did for myself, it was the same story. I used to reach out to people and they used to be like, who are you? Who's Supreet? So that when I decided to build my own brand through LinkedIn, and then those opportunities started coming to me instead of me chasing them, right? So I would say that whatever lows you are facing in life in terms of obviously professional sense, if you can build a brand for yourself, it should be something beyond your company, right? It should be, okay, who are you as a person? And that way you can basically elevate yourself. And even in the worst of times, people know you as a thought leader, and they would want you to work for them.
I love it, Supreet. I love it. Now, I want to dig a little deeper and I
Yeah.
want to understand from your perspective, from the people you talk to, not on social media, not on LinkedIn, like the people that you talk to in everyday life, your friends, family, next door neighbor, etc. I want to understand their psychology from your perspective and their approach to LinkedIn and their approach to personal branding, because I already like know the answer for myself because I'm
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, I have a lot of followers, etc. But I think that your mentality and my mentality is very different from the average person. So I kind of want to hear that from you, if that's okay. Kind of even like the cultural bias towards whether they should be on LinkedIn, whether they should not be, what that random auntie would say or what that random uncle would say, all of that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing which I don't think I've ever shared with anyone, but I'll share it on this forum without naming names. In one of my roles, obviously Microsoft celebrates the personal brand, right? And when I say that, okay, you should build your personal brand, people automatically assume that all your companies and your managers is going to support you, celebrate you, and be very happy with you. In one of my roles, when I started posting on LinkedIn, they basically invited me to a room. The CEO invited me to the room and she said, if you don't stop posting, your job is under threat. So I was basically reprimanded for posting on LinkedIn. So there is the dark side to it as well, that not everyone will welcome you. But I think that was a wake up call for me that I don't belong there. If my personal ambition is not celebrated at a workplace, I don't belong there. And that's why I decided to switch. And thank God for that, that now I'm in a company like Microsoft where personal branding is so important. There is another thing is also your parents might not understand you. Like, why are you putting your pictures and why are you posting on LinkedIn and what is this about? You do you is what I always say, right? And be you, the world will adjust. That is my mantra to live, especially in America. You know what's best for you. If LinkedIn works for you, go ahead. If Instagram works for you, do that, right? For me, Instagram doesn't work. So I'm not active on Instagram at all. If you just feel like writing on Medium is something I enjoy, you can start from there. I basically started my personal branding journey just from speaking engagements because that's something that I enjoyed. So I started sharing those on LinkedIn, and that is how I grew my brand. Makes you forget the world when you're doing it. That is your passion, right? You don't remember any world problems. You don't remember hunger. You don't remember to drink water. Like you don't remember anything in life. That is your passion. Do that and build your personal brand around. And then your personal brand wouldn't be like a chore that you have to do every day. It's something that be super organic and you would grow and people will know that you are authentic enough. Another thing that I would recommend is please don't chase followers, right? You don't need followers. You need fans, right? I really enjoy in a community that I live, there are so many Indians. People will stop me on the elevator and they would be like, oh, I've seen you on LinkedIn. I don't have hundreds of thousands of followers, but I feel whatever followers I have, I somehow have a connection with them. They send me a note, I respond to them, or I somehow know them. And that is the kind of bond that I was looking for. So it's okay if you don't go super viral and you don't have hundreds of thousands of followers. As long as you're having the impact, you're getting what you want out of your personal brand. That is more important. And forget what the world says. That's all chaos. So,
I love it. I think there's no way to replace being genuine.
yes.
And when you're being genuine in terms of building your brand, it's easy to do. You lose track of time, you enjoy it. I think when you have a personal brand and when you're building a personal brand, opportunities come to you rather than you looking for opportunities. Then you're in a position where you can be hyper strategic and you can grow most efficiently. I think there is a cost to building a personal brand. For me, I'm a hyper private person.
Yeah.
So building a personal brand is not fun. It's not
Yeah.
comfortable. It's not convenient. But I believe in personal growth. And I believe you have to be growing, you have to be doing uncomfortable things. Otherwise, you're not growing. That's my mindset. And I'm curious to hear, Supreet, from your personal perspective, when you were starting out to build a personal brand, were you excited to do it? Did you view it as more of a chore? Did you view it as an uphill battle? Help somebody who was thinking of starting a personal brand or who wants to land their first job. How do they get started or get over that mental hurdle?
Because the first time you start building your personal brand, like the first few months, I feel are extremely slow, right? Let's say you start writing. Maybe 4 people will read your story or 3 people will read your story. Or let's say you start posting on LinkedIn. Some posts will go super viral and some would not achieve the metrics that you would like to. This is a long game. For me, I felt it took like good 2.5 years for me to reach a position where I was able to get everything that I was expecting, right? Like the jobs, the speaking opportunities, the writing opportunities, the judging opportunities. Like all of those opportunities came to me after, I would say, 1.5, 2 years. So this is a long game. And that is why it is important for you to recognize your passions. Because if you're doing something because I told you so, you would lose in between, right? You would just stop doing it. It's the same way when you're losing weight, right? How your progress is not linear, right? Some days you're going to gain a bit of weight and some days you're going to lose a bit of a weight. And remember, you might stop in between saying, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. And you eat pizzas or burgers and that day you just lose it. It's all about consistency. So just show up every day to whatever that cause is. It could be losing weight or it could be building your personal brand. And those small increment efforts would ultimately give you the result that you're looking for.
I love it. Preet, we didn't get to talk about AI and tech that much. So I want to transition to that a little bit.
Sure.
And I want to understand from your perspective, when you're interacting with a lay person, maybe somebody with less experience in AI, they're looking for advice. They're looking to understand, how do I use AI to make my life easier? You save so much time for that person. But if you were giving advice to that listener and you were talking about AI, what would you recommend people can do to improve the efficiency in their personal life or in their work life? How can they use AI to make their life better?
That's a great question. So I think one thing that I did, and I think a lot of people can do, is if you're already in a professional role, you know what the bottlenecks are. You know what those inefficiencies are. And every day you go to work and you're like, I wish, someone else could do this, or I wish this was better. Those wishes can be converted to, I would say, a process using AI. That is your cue. So whatever those wishes are, I would say write them down. Then, with the help of a copilot or a chat GPT, brainstorm using those AI tools that if I were to do this better using AI, use an alternate technology, how can I do it, right? When you get those answers, what you would recognize is, oh, this topic, ChatGPT or some tool throws out, you should use an agent. And you're like, oh, what is an agent? That is where your learning process starts. You Google it or you understand from different sources. Okay, what is an agent? What is a large language model? What is a small language model? This is how I read and understand concepts. And that way you would be again in a loop where you are unfolding one, I would say one chapter at a time. And you will realize after a few days that you have grasped a lot of concepts. Then you basically join everything, connect all the dots that you have learned, and there you have a project for yourself as to how you can do it. That project, if you have the power, you can obviously pitch it to your higher ups, to your manager. So I would say if you're a working professional, that's the best way to do. If you're a student who is just starting out their journey, if you have already taken a degree in data science and AI, obviously you are clear on the concept. So you have the building blocks. If not, you can start taking certifications online or a boot camp just to get the basics right. And then I would say participate in as many projects as you can. There are a lot of NGOs out there that look for volunteers. I am in one of the leadership teams for Delta Analytics. So we basically have projects with NGOs using AI and machine learning, and then we hire data fellows to do those projects. So there are multiple initiatives like these where you can take part, do these projects, volunteer your time, and learn concepts. So my kind of suggestion is learn by doing, not just by reading, because whatever you read today is going to be outdated after 6 months. This is how fast the field is moving. And maybe 6 months is also a longer time. So that would be my recommendation.
I think learn by doing is the best approach. I think the beautiful thing about finding bottlenecks and solving them is if you're solving a problem for someone, you're able to monetize and somebody will pay for that solution. Because especially if you're at Microsoft or if you're at a big company, there's a value associated with saving time and improving efficiency. And I guess that transitions us to talking more about financial freedom, your outlook on money. I'm curious to hear how you approached financial freedom when you were in India and how that may or may not have changed now in the US several years later.
For me, my perspective on financial freedom, a lot to do with the culture from where I come from. I feel financial freedom for me meant respect and independence, especially being a woman. And as we all know that in India, even though India is progressing, we are still struggling with equality. We are still struggling with women gaining the right respect or the right access to the resources. So for me, the financial freedom meant, for me being me, I needed that financial freedom. So in India, as I moved here at 21, at the time, for me, money was all about what my parents could afford at the time. So being in the US meant that I had to make a name for myself. I had to earn the right money, and that equated to respect for me. So right now I'm married. Obviously, my husband is working as well. But I couldn't think of a time that I could just leave everything and be like, okay, my husband is earning, so I can depend on him. For me, independence and financial freedom go hand in hand. And I feel for women, especially financial freedom and having financial independence is extremely important. I can't even stress how important it is for you to feel like you should have financial freedom. Second thing is also to make strategic decisions with your finances. Everyone likes to go on vacations and spend on nice things, but also what strategic decisions you make kind of shape up your world. As I was mentioning, I had a debt, so I had to give that up. But at the same time, I was able to live in a smaller setting with my friends. So I saved a lot of money. So we were able to buy our first condo at 28. So I'm 30 right now. We bought our condo like 3 years back. And at a good time because our rents were equal to our mortgage. So I think those were all the good financial decisions. I would like to believe that I was able to buy a condo and live my life. So those are my views. Again, they're coming from a woman's perspective, so they're definitely different, but I strongly believe in that.
No, I love it. I think you touched on a lot of great things. I think you touched on really being intentional about your life.
Yes.
It's one of those things that when you move from a different country, you also have to learn the system. Part of learning the system is figuring out who to listen to, what advice to act on, how to position yourself for success. I'm curious to hear from your perspective. I know you also mentor a lot of women, and you are a thought leader in your space. So I want to understand from your perspective, when you're talking to other women, are these conversations about money coming up and financial literacy and how it's important to really build up that independence? Or are the people you're talking to typically concerned about other things?
I would say there's a mix of people that I speak with. There is definitely a concern on the money in a way that people do ask me for recommendations, especially when they're buying their first house. Though I'm not a real estate expert, but they just want to know my perspective on whether they should buy or they shouldn't buy. So I'm able to give my 2 cents on those topics. But I think the other topic that I definitely discuss with other women, especially from the third world country, when they have to make a decision whether they should come to the US or not, it's very important to take the finances into account at the time. Not everyone can afford it, but you still need a bit of a cushion of resources to be able to come here and succeed. So that is when I tell them that if you are coming here, it is not going to be the way it is in India or any other country where you still have the option to maybe not work there and maybe rely on your husband. I feel like in a country like US where everything is super expensive, super inflated, I don't think that is a possibility if you want to live a good life or a life that you were living back in your home country. So those discussions definitely come in. But I don't think the amount of money matters for me. I think when I'm mentoring women, the thing that I highlight is you have to be financially independent, right? Even if you're earning like $50 a day or $1,000 a day, it doesn't matter. You should be doing something for yourself, and especially in this country.
No, I think I love that. I think it's a very interesting perspective. And like I live in New Jersey. I mean, when I was in college, it was like, hey, I don't know how people are living under 150K a year.
Yeah.
Now I think the numbers are higher. I think
Yeah.
if you want to be comfortable in New Jersey, curious to hear, where do you live and what do you think that number is? To start off with, where people can start to feel like they can breathe. Like obviously I have 2 kids. I don't think 250 is enough, but everyone's numbers are different. Everyone's
Yeah.
lifestyle is different. So I'm curious to hear from your perspective, when you're thinking about financial freedom, what does that look like to be able to exhale where you can manage the house mortgage, if there are kids, there are
Yeah.
college savings, you're investing, you're traveling, etc.
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, just to give a glimpse of my lifestyle, I live with my husband in a two-bed, two-bath condo in Jersey City, Newport. He has to go to the office every day. I work remotely. Since we have to be close to the city, there is no other option but for us to be here just to avoid the commute time. And for me, having organic grass-fed is extremely important, and feeding myself with good food is extremely important. We don't spend a lot of money on going out or going to extravagant in our lifestyle that way. But yes, we do spend money on eating good food. So that is my priorities. And whatever your priorities are, I feel if you are a two people household, I think close to earning 500K is what is important to live a good lifestyle, especially in Jersey City. And you might know, Mustafa, that in Jersey City, like the rents are like 6K for a two-bed, two-bath. And mortgage is also close to that. So if that is the lifestyle that you're looking for, then 500K for two people, I think is the minimum that you need. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love it because it puts things into context, because the average person in America is probably making, or the average household in America is probably making under 100K, probably close to,
Yeah.
let's say 80K or so.
Yeah.
When you live in New York, New Jersey, California, cost of living is high. And ultimately, there are plenty of people making a lot of money as well. But I think the income piece is one piece. The expenses piece is another piece, like you alluded to and mentioned. And then from my perspective, that investing piece is that last piece. So for you, when you're looking at your own portfolio, when you're mentoring women, what are you typically seeing that a lot of people are investing in and having success in, or not investing in, but want to get started?
Yeah. I mean, I feel there are people who like to take big bets on stock market and they do great. But I think the minimum that I feel everyone should be doing is a Roth IRA and a 401k. I think that is the minimum, like for your retirement. I am very conscious of saving enough for my retirement, just considering life is unexpected and I wouldn't have this career for life, right? So you need that cushion for retirement. So that is one thing that I'm very mindful of. I think the second thing is just gaining skills so you can diversify your income going forward. I know a lot of immigrants, they cannot work like 2 or 3 jobs, but if once you have your, let's say you're on green card and you can do multiple things, I feel like, especially if you have a brand, you can diversify your income. You can have a job, but you could be like a professor, you could be mentoring, you could be teaching, you could be doing speaking engagements and getting paid. And I think having those streams of income is another thing. And the reason, honestly, that I decided to do my extraordinary visa is just so that I could get my green card faster, so that I could diversify my income and get 2 or 3 streams of income. If that is something that you can do, I would highly encourage to develop those skills so you can have those multiple streams of income.
I love it because I love how you tied in the fact that you built a brand and the fact that I made it so much easier for you to diversify your income.
Yeah.
You touched on having enough for retirement, and I wanted to just double tap on that. I wanted to zoom in a little further. I think, the number I mentioned for an individual or for a family was 250K.
Yeah.
Right? There's no right or wrong answer. What I would do is I'd take that number, multiply it by 10 to get the number you need in retirement. So if it's 250K, you need 2.5 million. If it's 500K, you need 5 million. So if you have 5 million at 65, at 50, at 40, you can retire, you can withdraw 3% a year, 4% a year, and you can live off that until you die. This is not financial advice. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a financial advisor. But fundamentally, from my perspective, there are a lot of different investment strategies that will make you more than 3%. The stock market typically makes you more. Real estate makes you even more. And the idea is when you build that financial model, your money won't run out. I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me today, to really sharing your wisdom. I really did appreciate it. And I think the audience learned a lot. What we'll do is we'll include your information in the show notes. That way people can reach out to you if they have any questions, if they want to continue the conversation. I know that we didn't touch as much on AI as I had wanted to, but I really appreciated your mindset, your structure, your ambition, your growth. And I think for the listeners, if there's one thing you can take away, there were a lot, but if there's one thing that you can take away, I think it's what Supreet is sharing with us is that there's no better investment than yourself. When you invest in yourself and you really optimize to grow, you're able to leverage that and monetize and figure out a monetization strategy. And with that, what we'll do is we'll continue the conversation in the next episode.